So I'm trying to simplify this process for everybody, and some people find it difficult to wrap their head around layers, feeling the pain, blind spots, self-sabotage. They're just so intertwined. It becomes difficult to make it clear in one episode. So we're going to just keep trying to take little pieces at a time, and eventually, hopefully it'll start clicking. For those of you still struggling, blind spots that's kind of what it's all about, right? So we kind of just split these parts off from us. They are no longer conscious to us. They're in our unconscious, and that is the original pain work, the shadow work. Those words are interchangeable. It's the part that we have pushed so far into the darkness that we can't see it. Our subconscious protects us and doesn't want us to see it because it was too painful, and it remembers, and we can't handle seeing it all at once up front. So the process of the layers is you start to feel uncomfortable with feelings and emotions, and you get emotional confusion, and everything gets cloudy. Decision-making becomes very difficult. And as there's a choice that can be made at that moment, you can mood alter and go back to ways of external validation or external numbing out. Just anything you need to do to keep away from those feelings. And that's the way I lived most of my life. From an early age, I just found ways to numb out because it was just too painful to live in my reality. And each day, each week, each year, each decade, I just kept getting further and further away from the original pain and living in reality and numbing out and creating fantasies in my head to keep me protected from the parts that I could not feel, see, love, experience, and they cause blind spots. And they're there. A lot of them, we don't know what they are. But as you peel away a layer, you're uncovering blind spots within yourself. There are things that you do uncontrollably that you don't know what they are or why they're doing it. I mean, I didn't know why I drank and drugged so hard for so long. I just hung around with other people who did the same thing I was doing. And, it was real easy to not look at yourself because a lot of the people I hung out with drank and drugged more than I did. And, at some points that was that was a major accomplishment. So, you get the uncomfortable feelings, and there's that choice. You can figure out how you want to deal with it. And unconsciously, our subconscious is like, uh-oh, bad feeling. Let's run towards something that feels good, and let's stay there as long as it can. And every addiction ends in failure. So sooner or later, what was taking away your pain and numbing you out and keeping you away from dealing from reality starts to fail. Because you have to drink more, you have to drug more, you have to work more, you have to sex more, whatever it is that you're doing, you have to do it more and more, and it gets to a point where that fails. It just stops working. But you can't stop whatever addiction you have, so you're caught in this bind. You want to feel better. The thing that you had chosen for years no longer takes your pain away. So not only is your pain getting greater because you can't put it down with whatever addiction you have, you're now dealing and realizing that you have a problem, that you have an addiction that you've been numbing out and you haven't been facing it. So the top layer is getting rid of the addiction, because it's sooner or later you're going to either drink and drug yourself to death, or you're going to have to start dealing with the feelings. So as the layer comes and you start to peel it away, and you come out of denial and you come out of delusion and you start to see things as reality, that shit's real painful. It's humiliating and it's embarrassing. I've been living with this blind spot forever. I just realized it. Does everybody in my life know that this is who I am and this is what I've been doing to cover up this other part of me? Like, it just becomes so clear to you When you take that unconscious and it becomes conscious and you look at it and it's humiliating. There's no other way to say it, and it brings you down. Nobody wants to look at themselves in negative ways, but that's what we have to do. We have to go look at the reality of how we've been living our lives and why. And I hate uncovering blind spots for days or weeks or months sometimes, but eventually I'm glad that I saw them. It is that time in between those layers as they're being uncovered is when we are dealing with the humiliation and the embarrassment of what we had to do to cope, to survive. And they're usually not pretty. It's being exposed before you're ready to be exposed. If somebody calls me out on my blind spot before I'm ready, I go right into shame. I've been exposed because there's a part of me, even if it's unconscious, that knows it. It may be a small part, and I do anything I can not to acknowledge that, but when somebody shines a light on that, and you're not ready to see it, man, that is such a setback emotionally. It becomes all of this time processing and saving face somewhat of, this is humiliating, embarrassing, and somebody else is seeing it. I'm not ready to have seen it. And it's just like this big surprise that the light has been turned on this darkness. And I have no choice but to look at it. But I don't really want to look at it. See, I want to go back over here and I want to mood alter and I want to numb out and I want to put myself in places where, I'm feeling good about myself and the people around me are feeling good about me. And then all of a sudden I see this thing that really isn't something that you want to know about yourself or admit to yourself. And how do you love that part of yourself that you hate and you despise? The parts of us that we cut off, we just hate that about us. If we didn't hate it about us, we wouldn't pushed it so far away. See, it's incorporating the things we hate back in and starting to find ways to love those parts of us. It feels weak and difficult. And how do you overcome something when you don't know what it is? See, we're out there running around like chickens without a head because we don't sit in our own reality. We get out of ourselves every chance we get. We pick up the phone, we turn on the TV, whatever it is that you do. As soon as those bad feelings come unconsciously, we are moving away from them. See, there's so many difficult areas about this work. Facing your reality is extremely painful. It is extremely lonely. See, I can tell you my worst shit, and you can tell me it's okay. But if I don't believe it's okay, it doesn't matter how much you tell me. See, I liked playing the victim. I didn't know I was doing it. And let me tell you, the day I woke up and saw that blind spot, that was a couple of months of really heavy, painful work. See, being the victim's easy because I'm off the hook. See, I get to blame you and anybody else that I want. And that takes me out of my feelings. When I have to start accepting responsibility and not be a victim, I have to do the work. I don't care what happened to me and who did it to me. They are no longer to blame. Who's to blame is me for allowing it to keep me down. You see, I learned a long time ago, and I didn't realize this till recently, that what I endured was painful to the point where I couldn't allow anyone to get over on me. I couldn't allow anyone to hurt me. I couldn't feel that. So I ended up hurting myself more than anybody else did. You see, if I'm hurting me more than you, whatever you're doing to me doesn't feel as bad. So I ended up beating the shit out of myself in every possible way to just put me down and convince myself that I'm a worthless piece of shit because when you told me I was, or you treated me like I was, it didn't hurt because I already knew the truth. And my truth became I was a worthless piece of shit. I was unworthy of love and care and attention. So I treated myself horribly. I've withheld so many important things for self-nurture and self-care within me because I had to hurt me before you hurt me. And man, you want to talk about self-sabotage, self-hate. I just am disgusted with myself. I am disgusted with that little kid years ago taking the shit that he shouldn't have taken. And I've been beating him up ever since. And we have to stop. We have to stop beating ourselves up. You see, the fear is not real anymore. It is imprinted in our nervous system, in our brain, in ourselves. There's a part of us that truly believes we are stuck back in those moments, and we're not. The only way out of this is to feel as bad as you felt and start taking care of that little boy and that little girl inside of you that needed to be loved, that needed to be cared for, that needed attention and affection. All the things that you didn't get that you needed to survive your basic needs. See, there's a certain level that a child needs to be filled up in order to be empowered to live a healthy, fulfilled life. And when that does not get filled to a certain level, the rest of your life, you're looking to fill that with things outside of yourself. See, I'm empty over here inside. And I self-sabotage and I self-hate. So I go outside and I look for love and I look for attention and I look for validation and I look for something to numb the pain and to kill the thoughts, to take all of that away so that I could live free within myself. See, alcohol and drugs didn't do it. I mean, listen, it was temporary, I did have a lot of fun at some points. It was probably really short-lived in retrospect how much time I did enjoy it, but it was just an escape. And that peaked, that numbness, that, I don't want to use the word oneness, but the lack of negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions that addictions took away was incredible. It was, and there's the addictive part, right? You feel like shit all day, you go party all night, and you feel better. It's easy math. But it gets to a point where you've tried everything outside of yourself, and they all take it away temporarily for a certain amount of time. But in the end, it fails. And with every failed addiction and every failed relationship and every failed adventure, I was left with the same thing that has always been there. Extreme self-hate and worthlessness. There is not one thing outside of myself that is going to take that feeling away. Yes, the mirroring is important. Having positive mirroring. But if you don't take that mirroring and apply it within, and you just apply it to your ego, and it becomes like a heroin addict tapping its vein looking for more. We have to use positive mirroring in a positive way within, and we have to believe it. See, if I hear something, my ego first thing goes, woo, all right, look at that. And then that other side of me, that dark side, that worthless side goes, yeah, but it's all bullshit. What do they know? See, I have to start believing it. I have to start to learn how to self-love and self-care. And that has never, ever been modeled to me. So I don't know what that looks like. I don't know where to start. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't even know I had this dialogue of self-hate. I can't be hurt anymore from the outside, so I hurt myself way more than anybody else on this planet can. And I have to stop doing that. We all have to stop doing that. We have to find ways to self-love and self-soothe. See, I can't be dependent on other human beings. I can't be dependent on things outside of myself. I don't feel like I can depend on myself. I have to give up this image. I have to stop hurting myself before others hurt me. I have to learn how to build up enough strength to not allow the words and actions of other people to devastate and cripple me. If I can take see, this is the craziest part. You use words like self-hate as protection, but that's what it is. See, I can control how much I hate myself. At least I think I can most of the time. Sometimes it just slips away and it gets a lot deeper and more intense hate than I would like. But in essence, I can control it. I can't control people leaving, people getting angry, people being disappointed, people shaming. I can't control anybody outside of myself. So self-hate to me is protection and control. And I think about how sad it is that I lived a life that was so traumatic to me that I had to self-hate to protect myself. See, we don't have to live that way anymore. And it's just like anything else you start. Listen, I can't rebuild a carburetor. If I was going to do that, I would have to start off slow, and I'm going to make many, many, many mistakes, and it may take me a year, 10 years, 15 years to finally rebuild one. But I got to start slow. I got to look at it. I have to think about it. I have to turn it and twist it and look at it from the bottom and from the sides and open it up and peek in. That's what we have to do for ourselves. We have to start creating better relationships with ourselves. You see, I hate myself, so why would I want to have a relationship with me? But this is where it all lives. This is the answer. This is the key. You can heal yourself. You have to go through the pain of uncovering these layers, of looking at the humiliating and the embarrassing things that you've done over your life just to cope with the pain. Start taking care of yourself. Start walking through the fear. When you want to do something, and you'll know, you will start to know, it will become instinctive. I know if there's something that I want to do. I also know how I go into my head and I will talk myself out of it. See, I tell that part to shut the fuck up now. There's a little child inside of me that was never loved for, was never cared for, was never treated right. And what I learned was that person inside that little kid is I had to treat him the same way as others were treating me, so not to lose their love. See, when I stuck up for myself, when I had a sense of self, when I did push back and set boundaries and limits, the abuse was worse. So I took the path of least resistance. I stopped pushing back, and I joined the other side in beating myself up in every possible way that I could. You don't have to do it anymore. There's nobody looming over your shoulder. You're not living in that situation anymore. Start to get in touch with that kid inside you. See, all I want to do is enjoy life and have fun and feel free. But there was a limit to the amount of joy you were allowed to have. See, once you started having too much joy, it all came down on you. We weren't allowed to be happier than our source figures. And they made that clear really quick. We were only allowed to be happy when they were happy. we could only have the feelings that they allowed. You're allowed to own every one of your feelings. You are allowed to be who you are. You are allowed to experience and express joy and love and compassion and anger and frustration and rage. You're allowed to experience it. Self-love, self-care. See, self-love starts with self-care. And this is going to look different for everybody. I know the things I withhold from myself. You see, if I start feeding myself joy and putting myself in places, my first unconscious reaction is, what if this goes away? What if this wears off? What if this good feeling goes away? What if this no longer brings me joy? See, everything with me is about loss. I'm worried about loss 24/7. I'm worried about loss of connection, loss of attention, loss of affection, loss of joy, loss of job, loss of money. See, I should be looking at it the other way. I shouldn't be looking about loss. It's like, what can I gain? See, if I'm worried about looking at loss, I'm always coming from a place of deficiency. I'm always worried about losing what I have. I'm not looking at acquiring any more joy or anything else in life. See, I was acquiring physical things to make up for the lack of love and appreciation for myself. Look at these shiny toys over here. Look at what I've acquired. Look at what I've built. Look how far I've come. It was all shame-based. I just needed to get out of that shame. So if I could be something that you look at and you admire, whether it's a watch or something I painted or written or whatever, that's just going to distract me. I needed things outside of myself, and I used them to replace where self-care should have been. The way we get to self-love is by self-care. Pay attention to your body. Pay attention to your needs. Pay attention to your wants and your desires, and start giving them to yourself. Treat yourself for little pleasures. A hot shower, a massage, a donut, ice cream, eating healthy one day, making plans to do something you want to do. And if nobody wants to do it with you, go do it yourself. Get back to the things that you used to love to do. Let's learn how not to be afraid of loss. We are empty inside. I have a reservoir of emptiness that needs to be filled. Intimacy, connection, love, passion, desire. I deny all of that because of fear of loss. I feel like every time I have gone for something that I wanted, it never worked out. So I stopped going for things that were important, that I wanted and I desired. I have to learn how to be okay with loss. And when you feel empty and depleted, loss is traumatic. So if you start feeding yourself with self-care and building a foundation for yourself, and know that what you've built up inside, that is yours and yours alone and built on your own worth, nobody can take that away. When we have no self-worth and we put our self-worth into somebody else's hands and they take it away, they leave. Whatever the situation is, they're taking our self-worth with us because we put it inside of them. If we build it on our own, we can continue to experience loss without the feeling of devastation. Thanks for listening. You can contact me at joeryan.com. Follow me on Instagram at joeryan. And if you want, you can leave us a review on iTunes. That'd be great. All right, take care.